Chapter 1. The Silent Dinner. The autumn wind whispered through the ancient oaks surrounding Ashbourne Manor, a grand estate nestled in the heart of the English countryside. Its towering chimneys and ivy-clad walls loomed against the twilight sky, a monument to wealth and tradition. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, adjusted his moustache as he stepped from the carriage, his sharp eyes scanning the manor's facade. Captain Arthur Hastings, his loyal friend, followed, clutching his overcoat against the evening chill. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice crisp, "this invitation from Lord Reginald Ashbourne intrigues me. A dinner with such a curious assortment of guests, scientists, aristocrats, and, I am told, a chemist of some repute. One wonders what brings them together." Hastings chuckled. "Probably just a chance to show off his wealth, Poirot. These country lords love their pomp." "Perhaps," Poirot replied, his eyes narrowing. "But Poirot does not believe in coincidences. There is always a purpose, even if it hides in the shadows." They were ushered into the manor's grand hall, where crystal chandeliers cast a paillé, warm glow over polished mahogany and ancestral portraits. The butler, a gaunt man named Perkins, led them to the dining room, where the other guests were already assembling. The long table, set with silver and fine china, gleamed under candlelight, and the air carried the faint scent of roasted pheasant and mulled wine. Lord Reginald Ashbourne, a robust man in his late 50s with a commanding presence, stood at the head of the table. His silver hair and piercing blue eyes gave him an air of authority, though his smile was strained. Beside him stood Lady Margaret Ashbourne, elegant but pale, her fingers nervously twisting a pearl necklace. "Welcome, Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," Lord Ashbourne boomed. "You honour us with your presence." Poirot bowed slightly. "The honour is mine, Lord Ashbourne. I am most curious to meet your distinguished guests." The other attendees were an eclectic group. To Lord Ashbourne's right sat Dr. Evelyn Voss, a chemist whose sharp features and cool demeanour suggested a mind as precise as her profession. Her dark eyes flicked toward Poirot, assessing him. Next was Sir Henry Caldwell, a rival scientist with a booming laugh and a reputation for ruthless ambition. Beside him was Charles Wentworth, Lady Ashbourne's nephew, a lean young man with a restless energy and a calculating gaze. Rounding out the party were Miss Clara Beaumont, a vivacious heiress with a penchant for gossip, and Mr. Lionel Gray, a quiet solicitor who seemed out of place among the glittering company. As the guests took their seats, Poirot's keen observation noted subtle tensions. Lady Ashbourne avoided her nephew's gaze, while Sir Henry and Dr. Voss exchanged barbed pleasantries about a recent scientific conference. Charles Wentworth fidgeted with his cufflinks, his eyes darting to the head of the table. Poirot, seated opposite Hastings, catalogued every gesture, his little grey cells already at work. The meal began with a delicate consommé, served by silent footmen. Conversation flowed, Miss Beaumont's chatter about London society, Sir Henry's boasts of his latest research, and Dr. Voss's cryptic remarks about revolutionary compounds. Lord Ashbourne, however, seemed distracted, his hand occasionally trembling as he lifted his glass. It was during the main course, as the footman presented a platter of pheasant, that Lord Ashbourne rose to propose a toast. To progress, he declared, his voice steady but his face flushed. To science, to family, and to the future of Ashbourne Manor. The guests raised their glasses, but before Lord Ashbourne could drink, his expression faltered. His hand clutched his chest, and a strangled gasp escaped his lips. The glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. He staggered, then collapsed, his body crumpling onto the table with a sickening thud. The room erupted in chaos. Lady Ashbourne screamed, her chair scraping back. Charles Wentworth leapt to his uncle's side, shouting for a doctor. Sir Henry stood frozen, his face ashen, while Dr. Voss calmly set down her glass, her eyes narrowing. Miss Beaumont clutched Mr. Grey's arm, sobbing, and the solicitor stared in mute horror. Hastings, ever practical, rushed to check Lord Ashbourne's pulse, but Poirot remained seated, his gaze sweeping the room. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot murmured, his voice barely audible over the din. "The man is dead." The local doctor, summoned from a nearby village, arrived within the hour. Dr. Thompson, a wiry man with a harried expression, examined the body, now laid out in the drawing-room. "No signs of trauma," he muttered, perplexed. "No wounds, no blood. It's as if his heart simply stopped." Poirot, standing by the fireplace, tilted his head. "And yet, Doctor, you smell nothing unusual? No trace of poison in the wine, the food?" Thompson shook his head. "I've checked the glass shards, the plate, nothing. If it was poison, it's unlike anything I've encountered. Invisible, you might say." "Invisible," Poirot repeated, his eyes gleaming. "A most apt description." As the guests were ushered to their rooms, under the watchful eye of Perkins, Poirot lingered in the dining-room. He knelt by the shattered glass, inhaling deeply. There it was, a faint, unplaceable odour, like bitter almonds but softer, fleeting. He rose, his mind racing. "Hastings," he said, beckoning his friend, "this is no ordinary death. The poison, if it is poison, is a phantom, but Poirot will find it." Hastings frowned. "You think someone here did this? But how? We all ate the same food, drank the same wine." "Précisément," Poirot replied. "That is the puzzle. The method is clever, the motive hidden. But rest assured, mon ami, the little grey cells are already at work." As the candles flickered, casting long shadows across the room, Poirot's gaze settled on the empty chair at the head of the table. The silent dinner had ended, but the mystery had only begun. Chapter 2. The Vanishing Trace. The morning after Lord Ashbourne's death dawned grey and heavy, the sky over Ashbourne Manor cloaked in mist. Hercule Poirot stood in the dining-room, his gloved hands clasped behind his back, his eyes tracing the scene of the previous night's tragedy. The long table, now stripped of its finery, bore faint stains from spilled wine and shattered glass. Captain Hastings, ever the faithful companion, hovered near the window, rubbing his hands against the chill seeping through the panes. "Poirot," Hastings said, turning, "this business gives me the creeps. A man drops dead in front of us, and no one can say why. It's unnatural." "Unnatural, perhaps," Poirot replied, his voice measured, "but not inexplicable. The truth, mon ami, is like a shadow. It exists even if we cannot yet grasp it. We must search for the light to reveal it." The local coroner, Dr. Thompson, had returned at first light, joined by Inspector Grayson, a dour policeman from the nearby town of Haverford. The inspector, a man of middle years with a perpetually furrowed brow, surveyed the room with scepticism. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, "I've heard of your reputation, but I'll be frank, this looks like a heart attack to me. No need for theatrics." Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of mild amusement. "Theatrics, Inspector? No, no. Poirot seeks only precision. A heart attack does not explain the suddenness, the absence of symptoms, nor—" He paused, leaning toward the table. "This faint odour I detected last night." Dr. Thompson, who was examining the remnants of Lord Ashbourne's meal, looked up. "Odour? I smelled nothing unusual. The food, the wine, all tested clean. No arsenic, no cyanide, no strychnine. If it's poison, it's a devilish one." "Précisément," Poirot murmured. "A devilish poison indeed. Invisible, as you said, Doctor." But Poirot does not believe in phantoms that leave no trace. He knelt by the head of the table, where Lord Ashbourne had fallen. The shattered wine-glass had been collected, but Poirot's keen eyes scanned the floorboards. He inhaled deeply, his nostrils flaring. There it was again, that elusive scent, bitter yet ethereal, like a memory fading on the wind. He straightened, his gaze settling on an ornate silver candelabra nearby. "Hastings," he said softly, "fetch me a cloth, s'il vous plaît." Hastings obliged, handing over a handkerchief. Poirot wiped the candelabra's base, then held the cloth to his nose. "Curieux," he muttered. "The odour is stronger here, but only just. A residue, perhaps," Inspector Grayson scoffed. "You're chasing ghosts, monsieur. Candles don't poison people." "No," Poirot agreed, "but they may conceal secrets. Tell me, Inspector, have you questioned the staff?" Grayson shrugged. "The butler, Perkins, and a few maids. They saw nothing odd, save the usual bustle of serving dinner. All loyal to the family by their account. Loyalty," Poirot said, "is a mask as easily worn as deceit. Let us speak with them ourselves." In the servants' hall, a cramped room below stairs, Poirot and Hastings found Perkins overseeing a subdued staff. The butler's gaunt face was impassive, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, bowing slightly, "how may we assist?" Poirot smiled, his demeanour disarming. "Monsieur Perkins, you are the eyes and ears of this house. Pass, tell me of last night, every detail, no matter how small." Perkins recounted the evening's routine, preparing the dining room, serving courses, clearing plates. All was as usual, he insisted, until his lordship fell. "And you noticed nothing strange?" Poirot pressed. "No unusual smells, no unfamiliar items?" Perkins hesitated, his fingers tightening on a silver tray. "No, sir, nothing." Poirot's gaze sharpened, but he turned to a young footman, a lanky lad named Thomas. "And you, jeune homme? You carried the wine, yes? Was anything amiss?" Thomas flushed, glancing at Perkins. I don't know, sir. The wine was from the cellar, same as always. But," he faltered, then blurted, "there was a moment when Dr. Voss's bag was left open in the hall. I saw a glass vial, but it was gone later." "Gone?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Most interesting. And where is this bag now?" "Is Dr. Voss's room," Perkins interjected quickly. "She's a guest, sir. We don't touch their belongings." "Naturellement," Poirot said smoothly. "But We shall speak with Dr. Voss soon." As they left the servants' hall, Hastings whispered, "That footman's nervous, Poirot. Think he's hiding something?" "Perhaps," Poirot replied, "or perhaps he sees more than he understands. The vial, Hastings, it is a thread in this tapestry. We must pull it gently." Back in the dining room, Poirot examined the air vent above the table, a brass grill set into the wall. He tapped it lightly, noting a faint draught. "This vent," he mused, "it connects to the house's heating system, yes? A curious place for a poison to linger if it were airborne." Dr. Thompson, overhearing, shook his head. "Airborne poison? That's science fiction, Monsieur Poirot. No such thing exists." "Yet," Poirot countered, "science moves faster than our laws, Doctor. And Dr. Voss, she is a chemist, no?" Inspector Grayson, growing impatient, interrupted. "Enough speculation. I'm calling this a natural death unless you find hard evidence. The family's in mourning, and I won't have them harassed." Poirot inclined his head. "As you wish, Inspector. But Poirot will continue to seek the truth, with or without your blessing." As Grayson and Thompson departed, Hastings sighed. "They don't believe you, Poirot. What now?" "Now, mon ami," Poirot said, his eyes glinting with determination. "We follow the vanishing trace. The odour, the vial, the vent. They are clues, small but significant. The poison may be invisible, but its shadow is not, and Poirot will find it." He glanced at the empty dining room, its silence heavy with secrets. The investigation had only just begun, and the manor's walls seemed to whisper of more to come. Chapter 3. Shadows of Motive. The morning mist had burned away, leaving Ashbourne Manor bathed in pale sunlight that did little to warm the sombre mood within its walls. Hercule Poirot sat in the drawing-room, a cosy yet opulent space with velvet drapes and a crackling fire. His notebook lay open on his lap, his fountain pen poised as he prepared to interview the guests from the fatal dinner. Captain Hastings stood by the window, watching the manicured lawns, his brow furrowed with unease. "Poirot," Hastings said, turning, "this lot's a mixed bag. Scientists, heirs, a chemist. How do you even begin to untangle their motives?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Mon ami, motives are like threads in a tapestry. They may seem tangled, but with care one can trace each to its source. We shall listen, observe, and let the little grey cells do their work." The first to enter was Lady Margaret Ashbourne, her pale face framed by a black mourning veil. She sat stiffly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice trembling, "this is a nightmare. Reginald was in perfect health. How could this happen?" Poirot leaned forward, his tone gentle but probing. "Madame, I sympathize with your loss. But tell me, were there tensions in the household? Perhaps disagreements with your husband?" Sir Ashbourne's lips tightened. "Every marriage has its strains, monsieur. Reginald was consumed by his investments in scientific research. He clashed with Sir Henry Caldwell over funding, and—" She hesitated, glancing away. "My nephew, Charles, was pressing him for a larger share of the estate." "Interesting," Poirot said, jotting a note. "And these clashes, they were recent?" "More frequent of late," she admitted. "Reginald felt Charles was impatient, ungrateful. But murder? Surely not." Her eyes filled with tears, but Poirot noted a flicker of calculation beneath her grief. Next came Charles Wentworth, Lady Ashbourne's nephew. His lean frame slouched into the chair, but his eyes were sharp, restless. "I know what you're thinking," he said brusquely. "The greedy heir, yes? Well, I didn't kill him. I needed Uncle Reginald alive. He was about to revise his will in my favour." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "And yet, Monsieur Wentworth, your aunt suggests you argued with him. Perhaps you grew impatient." Charles flushed. "We had words, yes. He thought I was too young to manage the estate's investments. But I respected him. Besides, I was nowhere near his wine or food." His defensiveness was palpable, and Poirot noted his quick glance toward the door, as if expecting an interruption. Henry Caldwell entered next, his booming voice preceding him. The rival scientist's ruddy cheeks and broad shoulders filled the room with an air of confidence. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, "I've no time for nonsense. Reginald was a fool to back that Voss woman's research over mine. But poison? Absurd. I'm a man of science, not a murderer." Poirot tilted his head. "Your rivalry with Dr. Voss, it was professional, oui? Yet I hear of a disputed portent. Something about a chemical process. A motive, perhaps, for resentment? Henry's laugh was harsh. "Resentment? I'd have outdone her in the journals, not with poison. Reginald's death hurts my funding, not helps it." His bluster, Poirot noted, masked a nervous twitch in his jaw. Dr. Evelyn Voss was the last to be questioned. The chemist's dark eyes met Poirot's with cool detachment as she sat, her posture rigid. "I suppose you suspect me because of my expertise," she said, her voice clipped. "I study toxins, yes, but I don't use them. Lord Ashbourne was my patron. His death is a loss to my work." Poirot's smile was disarming. "Mademoiselle, your knowledge intrigues me. A poison that leaves no trace. Such a thing would be a triumph of chemistry, no? Have you ever encountered such a substance?" Dr. Voss's gaze flickered, but her response was steady. "Theoretically possible, perhaps, but I deal in theories, not crimes." She rose abruptly, as if to end the conversation, but Poirot's next question stopped her. "And the vial young Thomas saw in your bag? It was missing later, I understand." Her expression hardened. "A misunderstanding. My equipment is private. I suggest you focus on actual evidence, monsieur." She swept out, leaving a trace of her sharp perfume in the air. As the door closed, Hastings exhaled. "Good Lord, Poirot, they're all hiding something. Lady Ashbourne's nervous, Charles is shifty, Sir Henry's all bluster, and Voss, well, she's colder than a winter's night." "Précisément," Poirot said, tapping his notebook. "Each has a shadow of motive, inheritance, rivalry, ambition. But the poison, Hastings, it is the key. It is not enough to suspect. We must understand how it was done." He rose, pacing the room, his eyes scanning the ornate wallpaper as if it held answers. "Consider the web we uncover. Lady Ashbourne speaks of family discord, suggesting Charles's greed. Charles claims a will in his favour, yet fears scrutiny. Sir Henry's rivalry with Dr. Voss points to professional jealousy, perhaps tied to a patent worth millions. And Dr. Voss, her knowledge of toxins is too convenient to ignore." Hastings frowned. "But no one saw anything tampered with. The food, the wine, it was all shared. "Oui," Poirot said, "and that is the genius of it. The poison is invisible, not just in its effect, but in its delivery. We must look beyond the obvious, beyond the plate and glass." He paused by a side table where a vase of fresh roses stood. He leaned closer, inhaling deeply, then shook his head. "No, not here. But the odour I detected last night, it lingers in my mind. We must return to the dining room, Hastings, and examine it again." As they left the drawing-room, Poirot's thoughts churned. The motives were clear, but the method remained a phantom. The shadows of suspicion had deepened, and the manor's air seemed thick with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Chapter 4. The Chemist's Secret. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Ashbourne Manor's guest wing, where narrow corridors led to rooms reserved for distinguished visitors. Hercule Poirot, his polished shoes clicking softly on the polished floor, approached the door of Dr. Evelyn Voss's temporary quarters. Captain Hastings trailed behind, his expression a mix of curiosity and unease. "Poirot," Hastings whispered, "this Voss woman gives me the chills. A chemist with a bag full of mysterious vials? If anyone could concoct an invisible poison, it's her." Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. "Mon ami, suspicion is not evidence. But, Doctor, Voss's knowledge makes her intriguing. We must explore her world. The world of science, where secrets hide in formulas and flasks." He knocked sharply on the door. After a moment, Dr. Voss opened it, her dark eyes narrowing as she took in her visitors. She wore a simple grey dress, her hair pulled back tightly, accentuating her sharp features. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice cool, "to what do I owe this visit?" "Pardonnez-moi, mademoiselle," Poirot said, bowing slightly, "but I wish to discuss your work. Your expertise in chemistry may shed light on Lord Ashbourne's tragic end." Dr. Voss stepped aside, allowing them into the room. It had been transformed into a makeshift laboratory. A wooden table held glass beakers, a burner, and neatly arranged notebooks. A locked leather journal sat prominently beside a microscope, its pages tantalizingly out of reach. The air carried a faint chemical, tang, sharp, and unfamiliar. "Impressive," Poirot remarked, his eyes scanning the equipment. "You travel with the tools of your trade, I see." "My research doesn't pause for social invitations," Dr. Voss replied, folding her arms. "Lord Ashbourne funded my work on chemical compounds. He believed in progress, unlike some of his peers." Poirot nodded, circling the table. "And these compounds, might they include substances capable of, let us say, causing harm without detection?" Dr. Voss's lips tightened. "You're fishing, monsieur. My work focuses on medical applications, not murder. If you're referring to the vial your footman mentioned, it was a harmless reagent. I misplaced it, nothing more." "Misplaced?" Poirot repeated, his tone neutral, but his eyes sharp. "Curieux, no? A chemist of your precision does not misplace such things." Hastings, standing near a shelf of books, picked up a worn volume titled Advances in Toxicology. "Heavy reading," he said, flipping through it. "This mentions undetectable toxins. Care to explain?" Dr. Voss snatched the book from his hands, her composure slipping for a moment. "That's theoretical, Captain. Science explores possibilities, not crimes. I'm no poisoner." Poirot's gaze fell on the locked journal. Perhaps your notes could clarify your research, mademoiselle. May I?" Her hand moved protectively to the journal. "Those are private. My work is proprietary, funded by Lord Ashbourne himself. You've no right to pry." "Bien sûr," Poirot said smoothly, "but a man is dead, and secrets, they have a way of becoming evidence." Before Dr. Voss could respond, the room plunged into darkness. A sudden power outage silenced the hum of the manor's electric lights, leaving only the faint glow of daylight through the curtains. Hastings cursed under his breath, stumbling against the table. Poirot, ever alert, heard a soft rustle near the desk. When the lights flickered back on moments later, Dr. Voss stood by the window, her expression unreadable. Poirot's eyes darted to the table. The leather journal was gone. "Mon Dieu!" he murmured, his voice low. A most convenient interruption. Dr. Voss raised an eyebrow. "The wiring in these old houses is unreliable. My journal is safe, monsieur. I moved it during the blackout. Instinct, nothing more." "Instinct?" Poirot echoed, unconvinced. "And yet something else is missing, non?" He pointed to a small wooden box on the table, its lid slightly ajar. Inside, a slot for a glass vial was empty. Dr. Voss's face paled, but she recovered quickly. "As I said, I misplaced a reagent. It's irrelevant to your investigation." Poirot did not press further, but his mind was alight. "Merci, mademoiselle. We shall speak again." As they left the room, Hastings whispered, "She's hiding something, Poirot. That journal, the vial, it's too suspicious." "Oui, Hastings," Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming. "But suspicion is a spark, not a fire. We must find the fuel, the method of this invisible poison." They descended to the manor's main hall, where the butler, Perkins, was overseeing the staff. Poirot paused, his gaze lingering on a servant carrying a tray of cleaning supplies. "Monsieur Perkins," he called, "a word, s'il vous plaît. The power outage, does it happen often?" Perkins frowned. "Rarely, sir. The generator is old, but it's maintained. I'll have it checked." "Do so," Poirot said, "and tell me who has access to the guest wing." "Only the staff and guests," Perkins replied. "The maids clean daily, but no one else enters without permission." Poirot nodded, filing the information away. As they stepped outside into the crisp air, he turned to Hastings. "The journal, the vial, the blackout, they are pieces of a puzzle. Dr. Voss guards her secrets, but secrets, mon ami, have a way of betraying their keepers." He glanced back at the manor, its windows glinting like eyes in the fading light. "We must return to the dining room tonight," he said. "The odour I detected, it is the thread we must follow, and Poirot suspects it leads to more than chemistry." The manor loomed behind them, its secrets locked within its walls, but Poirot's little grey cells were already weaving a net to catch the truth. Chapter 5. Echoes in the Library. Rain lashed against the tall windows of Ashbourne Manor's library, the storm outside transforming the afternoon into a twilight gloom. Hercule Poirot sat at a heavy oak desk, surrounded by towering bookshelves that smelled of old leather and wax polish. His gloved fingers sifted through a pile of Lord Ashbourne's correspondence, each letter a potential window into the motive behind his mysterious death. Captain Hastings, ever restless, paced near a marble bust of some long-forgotten Ashbourne ancestor, his boots muffled by the thick Persian rug. "Poirot," Hastings said, glancing at the darkening sky. "This place feels like a tomb. All these letters, do you really think they'll tell us who poisoned him?" Poirot's eyes, sharp as ever, flicked up from a yellowed envelope. "Mon ami, the written word is a mirror to the soul. Lord Ashbourne's letters may reveal what his guests conceal. Patience, Hastings. We seek the echo of a secret." The library was a sanctuary of knowledge, its shelves lined with scientific journals, classic literature, and family records. Poirot had chosen this room to retreat from the suspect's guarded tongues, hoping the late lord's papers would speak more freely. He opened a letter dated 3 weeks prior, written in a hurried scrawl. It was addressed to a solicitor in Duty, London, mentioning a sensitive matter and a potential threat to the estate's legacy. The word blackmail caught Poirot's eye, underlined twice. "Curieux," Poirot murmured, passing the letter to Hastings. Lord Ashbourne feared someone was leveraging a secret against him. But what secret, and who? Hastings frowned, scanning the page. Blackmail. That could point to Charles Wentworth. He's after the inheritance. Or maybe Sir Henry, over that patent dispute you mentioned. "Perhaps," Poirot said, "but we must not leap to conclusions. The truth is a delicate thread, not a rope to be yanked." As Poirot sifted through more letters, Hastings wandered to a side table cluttered with family memorabilia. Among silver-framed photographs, he picked up one that made him pause. A faded image of a younger Lord Ashbourne, standing beside a man and a woman at a scientific conference. The woman bore a striking resemblance to Dr. Evelyn Voss, though her hair was lighter then. The man, with a familiar jawline, could have been a younger Sir Henry Caldwell. "Poirot, look at this," Hastings said, holding up the photograph. "Voss and Sir Henry, with Lord Ashbourne, years ago. They've known each other longer than they let on." Poirot's moustache twitched with interest as he examined the photograph. "Most intriguing, mon ami. This suggests a history, a shared past that may hold the key to motive. Why did they not mention this connection?" Before Hastings could reply, a clap of thunder rattled the windows, and the library door creaked open. Miss Clara Beaumont, the vivacious heiress, stood in the doorway, her auburn curls damp from the rain. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice breathless, "I couldn't help overhearing the maids. They're saying you suspect poison. Is it true?" Poirot smiled, gesturing for her to sit. "Mademoiselle Beaumont, gossip is a poor substitute for truth. But since you are here, perhaps you can assist. You are observant, no? Did you notice anything unusual at the dinner?" Clara's eyes widened, eager to share. "Well, I did think Charles was awfully tense. He kept glancing at his uncle, like he was waiting for something, and Dr. Voss, she barely touched her wine, which I thought odd for someone so composed." "Most interesting," Poirot said, jotting a note. "And Lord Ashbourne himself? His demeanour?" "He was nervous," Clara admitted, twisting a ring on her finger. "He kept looking at the clock, as if he expected something to happen. I thought it was just the stress of hosting." Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing her words. "Merci, mademoiselle. Your observations are most helpful." As Clara left, the storm intensified, trapping the guests indoors. Poirot returned to the letters, finding a cryptic note from an unknown sender. "Pay what you owe, or the truth will surface." It was unsigned, but the handwriting was precise, almost scientific. Poirot's thoughts turned to Dr. Voss and her locked journal, but he filed the note away for later. Hastings, still holding the photograph, said, This storm's making everyone edgy, Poirot. The staff are whispering, the guests are jumpy. It's as if the manor itself is hiding something. Oui, Poirot agreed, rising from the desk. The manor, like its inhabitants, holds echoes of the past. This photograph, these letters, they are pieces of a puzzle. But the poison, Hastings, it remains the heart of the mystery. We must return to the dining room, to the air vent, to the odour I cannot forget. He paused by a bookshelf, his fingers brushing a volume on toxicology, similar to the one in Dr. Voss's room. Science and secrets, he mused. They are intertwined here, and Poirot will unravel them. As they left the library, the queue. Storm's howl seemed to echo the unanswered questions swirling in Poirot's mind. The blackmail note, the photograph, and Clara's observations had deepened the web of suspicion. But the invisible poison remained a phantom, its method as elusive as the motives it served. Chapter 6. The Servant's Whisper. The storm that had battered Ashbourne Manor through the night had subsided by late morning, leaving a damp chill that seeped into the stone walls. Hercule Poirot, his overcoat buttoned against the cold, descended the narrow staircase to the servants' quarters, a labyrinth of low-ceilinged rooms beneath the grandeur above. Captain Hastings followed, his face etched with curiosity, though he muttered about the gloom of the place. "Poirot," Hastings said, ducking under a beam, "why the sudden interest in the staff? They're just doing their jobs, hardly masterminds of poison plots." Poirot's eyes gleamed in the dim light of a flickering gas lamp. "Mon ami, the unnoticed are often the most observant. Servants see what guests conceal, hear what is not meant for their ears. In their whispers we may find the truth." They entered the servants' hall, a cramped space where a long wooden table bore the scars of countless meals. The butler, Perkins, stood at the far end, polishing silver with mechanical precision, but his gaunt face tightened at their arrival. Nearby, a young maid named Ellen, barely 20, was folding linens, her hands trembling slightly. Poirot noted her nervous glances toward Perkins and decided she was the place to begin. "Mademoiselle Ellen," he said, his voice gentle, "you have worked here long, oui? You know the rhythms of this house. Tell me, was anything unusual the night Lord Ashbourne died?" Ellen's eyes darted to Perkins, who gave a barely perceptible nod. Nothing, sir," she stammered. "I was in the kitchen, helping with the dishes. It was a busy night." Poirot smiled, disarming her with his warmth. Of course, but perhaps you overheard something. A conversation, perhaps, that seemed out of place." Her fingers twisted the linen, and after a long pause, she lowered her voice to a whisper. "I didn't mean to listen, sir, but I was passing the study before dinner. Lord Ashbourne was arguing with Mr. Wentworth, his nephew. They were shouting about money and a will. His lordship said, 'You'll not see a penny if you keep this up.'" Hastings leaned forward, eyebrows raised. "An argument? Why didn't you tell the police?" Ellen flinched. "I didn't think it mattered, sir, and Mr. Perkins said we shouldn't gossip about the family." Perkins cleared his throat, stepping forward. "Ellen's young, Monsieur Poirot. She exaggerates. Servants hear half-truths and make stories." Non, Poirot said, raising a hand. "Half-truths are still truths, Monsieur Perkins. This argument is most illuminating. Tell me, Ellen, did you see anything else that night? Perhaps in the dining room?" Ellen hesitated, then nodded. There was a tea tray, sir, left on the sideboard before dinner. It wasn't supposed to be there. Mrs. Grayson, the housekeeper, is particular about such things. I meant to clear it, but I got called away." Poirot's moustache twitched with interest. "A tea tray, you say? With cups? A pot?" "Yes, sir," Ellen replied. "Just one cup, though, and a small pot. I thought it odd, but with the dinner. Rush! I forgot about it." "Most curious," Poirot murmured, his mind racing. "And where is this tray now?" Ellen glanced at Perkins, who answered, "Likely in the scullery, sir, washed and stored. We keep things tidy here." "Naturellement," Poirot said, though his tone suggested scepticism. "I would like to see the scullery, if you please." Perkins led them to a damp, stone-walled room, where pots and trays gleamed under the scrutiny of Mrs. Grayson, a stout housekeeper with a stern gaze. Poirot examined the shelves, his gloved fingers tracing the edges of a silver tea tray that matched Ellen's description. He lifted the teapot, inhaling deeply, but no trace of the bitter, ethereal odour from the dining room lingered. "Cleaned thoroughly, I presume?" Poirot asked, turning to Mrs. Grayson. "Of course, sir," she said, bristling. "My girls don't leave dirty dishes lying about." Poirot nodded, but his eyes lingered on the tray. "Hastings," he said softly. "A tea tray out of place, an argument overheard. These are not accidents. They are threads in our tapestry." As they left the scullery, Poirot questioned Perkins further. "Monsieur, you oversee deliveries. To the manor, oui? Have there been any unusual packages recently? Chemicals, perhaps, or scientific equipment?" Perkins's face remained impassive. "Nothing out of the ordinary, sir. Food, wine, the usual. Dr. Voss receives parcels for her work, but they go straight to her room." "Interesting," Poirot said, filing the detail away. "And the staff? Do they speak of the guests? Of Dr. Voss or Mr. Wentworth?" Perkins hesitated. "Servants talk, sir, but it's idle chatter. They say Mr. Wentworth's ambitious, always asking about the estate. Dr. Voss keeps to herself, though some find her unsettling." Poirot smiled. "Merci, Monsieur Perkins. Your candour is appreciated." As they ascended to the main floor, Hastings said, "That tea tray bothers me, Poirot. Could it be how the poison was delivered? A cup meant for Lord Ashbourne." "Perhaps," Poirot replied, his eyes distant. "But the poison is invisible, mon ami, and leaves no trace. A teapot, even cleaned, should hold some clue, yet it does not. We must consider other methods, perhaps not ingestion, but something more subtle." He paused in the hall, glancing toward the dining room. "The argument Ellen overheard strengthens the motive for Charles Wentworth. And the tray, it suggests a plan, a moment of opportunity. But the odour, Hastings, the odour from the candelabra, it haunts me. We must return to it." Outside, the manor's gardens glistened with rain, but inside the air was thick with secrets. Poirot's little grey cells churned, weaving Ellen's whisper into the growing web of clues, each step bringing him closer to the phantom poison's truth. Chapter 7. The Garden of Doubt. The late morning sun filtered through the glass panes of Ashbourne Manor's greenhouse, casting dappled shadows over rows of exotic plants and blooming flowers. Hercule Poirot, his patent leather shoes carefully navigating the gravel path, inhaled the humid air, rich with the scents of earth and foliage. Captain Hastings followed, his brow furrowed as he swatted at a stray vine, clearly out of his element. "In this verdant sanctuary, Poirot," Hastings said, wiping his forehead. "What are we doing in this jungle? The poison's in the dining room, not some flower pot." Poirot's eyes twinkled as he paused by a cluster of orchids. "Mon ami, nature is a chemist of unparalleled skill. If our poison is truly invisible, it may not come from a laboratory, but from the earth itself. The greenhouse, Hastings, is a place of secrets. Let us uncover them." The greenhouse, a sprawling structure behind the manor, was tended by Mr. Hargreaves, an elderly gardener with gnarled hands and a quiet demeanour. He greeted them with a nod, his eyes wary, as Poirot began examining the plants. "Lord Ashbourne loved this place," Hargreaves said, clipping a wilted leaf. "He'd spend hours here, especially with Dr. Voss. She was keen on certain specimens." "Dr. Voss?" Poirot's interest sharpened. "Which specimens, Monsieur Hargreaves?" The gardener pointed to a corner where a peculiar plant stood, its leaves glossy and dark, dotted with tiny star-shaped flowers. "That one, sir. She called it Nerium oleander. Said it had properties for her research." Poirot approached the plant, his gloved fingers hovering over its leaves. "Oleander," he murmured. "A beautiful poison, non? Its toxins can stop the heart, yet leave little trace if used with care." He turned to Hargreaves. "Has anyone else shown interest in this plant?" Hargreaves shook his head. "Not that I've seen, sir, but I don't watch every visitor. The greenhouse is open to guests." Hastings frowned. "Could this oleander be our poison, Poirot? Ground up, slipped into Lord Ashbourne's food?" "Sure," Poirot said, "but unlikely. Oleander's effects are slow, and Lord Ashbourne's death was swift. Still, it suggests a mind familiar with natural toxins. Perhaps Dr. Voss's mind." He noted a small pruning knife nearby, its blade stained with sap, and filed the detail away. As they moved deeper into the greenhouse, Poirot's attention shifted to a locked cabinet against the far wall, its glass door revealing shelves of fertilizers, pesticides, and chemical bottles. "Monsieur Hargreaves," he asked, "what is kept here?" "Supplies, sir," the gardener replied. "Some are for the plants, others for Dr. Voss's experiments. She has a key, as did his lordship." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Key, you say? Most interesting." Before he could press further, the greenhouse door swung open, and Sir Henry Caldwell strode in, his ruddy face flushed with irritation. "Monsieur Poirot," he boomed, "what's this nonsense about sniffing around plants? You're wasting time when the real culprit's probably laughing at us." Poirot turned, his expression calm but probing. "Sir Henry, your presence is fortuitous. I was just considering the role of science in this tragedy. You and Dr. Voss, you share a history, oui? A patent dispute, perhaps, that soured your professional bond." Sir Henry's eyes narrowed. "That's old news. Voss tried to claim my work on a chemical stabilizer, pure theft. I proved my case, and Lord Ashbourne backed me. She's been bitter ever since." "Curieux," Poirot said. "And yet you were both here, funded by Lord Ashbourne. Did you ever suspect sabotage in your rival's work?" Sir Henry's bluster faltered, his jaw tightening. "Sabotage? Well, there were incidents. My lab notes went missing once, and a sample was contaminated. I blamed Voss, but I had no proof. She's cunning, I'll give her that. Hastings raised an eyebrow. Sounds like motive to me, Poirot. If Voss sabotaged Sir Henry, maybe she targeted Lord Ashbourne for siding with him. Perhaps, Poirot said, his gaze fixed on Sir Henry. But sabotage is one thing, murder another. Tell me, Sir Henry, did you ever work with natural toxins, like oleander? Sir Henry scoffed. I'm a chemist, not a botanist. My work's in synthetics, not weeds. If you want poison, ask Voss. She's the one with a cabinet full of chemicals. Poirot nodded, letting the accusation hang in the air. Merci, Sir Henry. Your candour is illuminating. As Sir Henry stormed out, Hargreaves excused himself to tend the roses, leaving Poirot and Hastings alone. Poirot approached the locked cabinet, examining its latch. This cabinet, Hastings, it holds more than plant food. Dr. Voss's experiments, Sir Henry's suspicions, they point to a deeper game. He knelt by the oleander, inhaling its faint, sweet scent, but it lacked the bitter, ethereal odour from the dining room. Non, he murmured, this is not our poison, but it is a clue, a signpost to a mind that knows the art of death. Hastings sighed. We're no closer to the how, Poirot. Oleander, chemicals, sabotage, it's all a muddle. Mon ami, Poirot said, rising. It is a mosaic, and each piece fits. The greenhouse tells us of knowledge and opportunity, but the method remains elusive. We must return to the dining room, to the vent, to the candelabra. The little grey cells, they whisper that the answer lies there. As they left the greenhouse, the manor loomed ahead, its stone facade unyielding. The Garden of Doubt had yielded new suspicions, but the invisible poison remained a phantom, its secrets buried in the shadows of Ashbourne Manor. Chapter 8. The Unseen Guest. The late afternoon light filtered weakly through the clouds, casting a pallor over Ashbourne Manor's sprawling grounds. Hercule Poirot stood in the grand hall, his hands clasped behind his back, his sharp eyes scanning the faces of the assembled guests. The storm's aftermath had left the air heavy, and the tension among the suspects was palpable. Captain Hastings, standing by Poirot's side, shifted uneasily, sensing the weight of the moment. "Poirot," Hastings whispered, "you're sure about this? Gathering them all like this, it's like poking a hornet's nest." Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. "Mon ami, a hornet's nest, when disturbed, reveals its secrets. We shall observe, listen, and let the little grey cells discern the truth." The investigation had taken a new turn that morning, when Hastings, restless for action, had ventured to the nearby village of Haverford. At the Rusty Anchor, a modest inn, he'd spoken with Mrs. Harrow, the innkeeper, stout woman with a keen memory for strangers. She'd mentioned a man in a dark coat, seen lurking near the manor's gates 2 days before Lord Ashbourne's death. "Kept to himself, he did," she'd said. "Paid in cash, left before dawn, didn't give a name." Hastings relayed this to Poirot, who now stood before the guests: Lady Ashbourne, Charles Wentworth, Sir Henry Caldwell, Dr. Evelyn Voss, Miss Clara Beaumont, and Mr. Lionel Grey, in the drawing-room. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows, but the atmosphere was as cold as the damp stone walls. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and commanding. A new piece of the puzzle has emerged. An uninvited visitor was seen near Ashbourne Manor before Lord Ashbourne's untimely end. A stranger, perhaps, with a purpose unknown. I ask you now, did any of you see this person, or know of someone who wished your host harm? Lady Ashbourne's hand tightened on her handkerchief, her face pale beneath her mourning veil. A stranger? Surely not. The manor is secluded. No one comes uninvited. Charles Wentworth, slouched in an armchair, snorted. Sounds like village gossip. People see shadows and invent stories. You're wasting time, Poirot. Poirot's eyes narrowed, noting Charles's quick dismissal. Perhaps, Monsieur Wentworth, but shadows often have substance. Let us consider. Who might benefit from Lord Ashbourne's death, and who might employ an outsider to achieve it? Sir Henry Caldwell, his ruddy face flushed, leaned forward. If you're suggesting hired killers, Poirot, you're barking up the wrong tree. This is about science, Voss's domain, not some cloaked villain from A Penny Dreadful. Dr. Voss's lips curled slightly, her gaze icy. You're predictable, Sir Henry. Blame me, as always. I saw no strangers, Monsieur Poirot, and I've no need for hired hands. My work speaks for itself. Miss Clara Beaumont, perched on a sofa, gasped theatrically, A mysterious stranger. How thrilling! But I didn't see anyone odd, except, well, Mr. Gray was out walking that evening, weren't you? She turned to the solicitor, who paled under her scrutiny. Mr. Gray, usually quiet, stammered, I often walk the grounds. Clears the mind. I saw no one unusual, I swear. Poirot's gaze lingered on Gray, noting his nervous fidgeting. Merci, Monsieur Gray. Your walks, they are solitary, oui? And yet you were near the gates that evening? Gray nodded, swallowing hard. Just a stroll, nothing more. Hastings, watching from the sidelines, whispered to Poirot. Gray's jumpy, Poirot. He's hiding something or someone. Poirot nodded subtly, then addressed the group again. Let us return to the night of the dinner. The poison, it was swift, invisible, but was it delivered by a guest at this table or by an unseen hand? I ask you to think. Any detail, however small, may be the key. The room fell silent, the crackle of the fire the only sound. Lady Ashbourne's eyes darted to Charles, who avoided her gaze. Sir Henry glared at Dr. Voss, who stared back with cool defiance. Clara twisted her ring, while Gray's hands trembled slightly. Poirot's little grey cells were at work, cataloguing every glance, every pause. Finally, Clara spoke, her voice hesitant. I did notice something. The dining room felt stuffy that night, like the air was heavy. I thought it was just the candles, but maybe... She trailed off, uncertain. Poirot seized the observation. Stuffy, you say? A most valuable detail, mademoiselle. The air, it is a clue we have overlooked too long. As the guests dispersed, their unease lingering like the storm's dampness, Poirot turned to Hastings. The unseen guest, mon ami, may be a person, or it may be the poison itself, slipping through the air. Clara's comment, Gray's nervousness, they point to something subtle, something we have yet to grasp. They stepped into the hall, where Perkins, the butler, was directing a maid. Poirot paused, his mind returning to the dining room's air vent and the faint, bitter odour. We must investigate the manor's ventilation, Hastings. If the poison was airborne, as I suspect, the unseen guest may have entered through the very walls. The manor loomed around them, its silence heavy with secrets. The stranger's shadow had added a new layer to the mystery, but Poirot knew the truth lay in the details, the air, the glances, the whispers of an unseen hand. Chapter 9. The Clock's Deception. The late afternoon light cast long shadows across Ashbourne Manor's dining room, where the remnants of the fatal dinner still seemed to linger in the air. Hercule Poirot stood before the ornate mahogany clock on the mantel. Its gilt, hands frozen at 10 minutes past 7, a curious anomaly for a mechanism renowned for its precision. Captain Hastings, standing near the table, rubbed his chin, puzzled by Poirot's intense scrutiny of the timepiece. "Poirot," Hastings said, "it's just a clock. Surely you don't think it poisoned Lord Ashbourne?" Poirot's eyes gleamed with quiet intensity. "Mon ami, a clock is more than a keeper of time. It is a witness to truth. This one, I suspect, has been tampered with, and in its deception lies a clue to our invisible poison." The clock had caught Poirot's attention during his earlier inspections, its sluggish ticking at odds with the manor's meticulous order. He had noted Clara Beaumont's remark about Lord Ashbourne glancing at it nervously during the dinner, and now, with the investigation deepening, he sensed it held a key to the timeline of the crime. He opened the clock's casing with a delicate touch, revealing a tangle of gears and a loosened weight. "Regardez, Hastings," Poirot said, pointing to the mechanism. "The weight has been adjusted, slowing the clock by several minutes. This is no accident. It was done with purpose." Hastings frowned. "But why tamper with a clock? To confuse the time of death?" "Précisément," Poirot replied. "If the clock was slow, the alibis of our suspects may not align with the moment Lord Ashbourne collapsed. We must test their accounts." He summoned Perkins, the butler, who confirmed the clock was wound daily and had been accurate until the night of the dinner. "Odd, sir," Perkins said, his gaunt face creased with unease. "I checked it that afternoon, and it was fine." "Most interesting," Poirot murmured. "Someone altered it before the dinner, perhaps to obscure their movements." To probe further, Poirot devised a psychological experiment. He gathered the guests in the drawing-room, their faces a mix of irritation and apprehension under the flickering chandelier. Lady Ashbourne sat rigidly, her mourning veil accentuating her pallor. Charles Wentworth slouched, his eyes darting. Sir Henry Caldwell crossed his arms, impatient, while Dr. Evelyn Voss maintained her icy composure. Clara Beaumont fidgeted with her ring, and Mr. Lionel Gray, the solicitor, clutched a handkerchief, his nerves apparent. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice commanding attention. "I have discovered a discrepancy in the timeline of our tragedy. The dining-room clock was tampered with, running slow by 10 minutes. I ask each of you to recount your movements from 7 to 7:30 that evening. Be precise, s'il vous plaît." Lady Ashbourne spoke first, her voice trembling. "I was in the dining-room from 7, greeting guests. Reginald was with me until he collapsed just after the toast." Poirot nodded, noting her vagueness. "And the exact time of the toast, madam?" She hesitated. "Around 7:15, I believe." Charles Wentworth went next, his tone defensive. "I was in the hall at 7, speaking with Perkins about the wine. Joined the dinner by 10 past, stayed until the end." Poirot's pen scratched in his notebook. And you, Sir Henry?" The scientist snorted. "In the dining room by 7, arguing with Voss about her shoddy research. Didn't leave until the chaos started." Dr. Voss's eyes narrowed, arrived at 7 sharp, sat opposite Sir Henry, and remained there. "The toast was closer to 7:20, I'd say," Clara Beaumont chimed in, her voice eager. "I was late, 7:10 maybe. I was fixing my hair. The room was already full when I sat down. Mr. Gray," his voice barely above a whisper, said, "I was in the library until 7, then joined the dinner. I don't recall the exact time of the toast." Poirot's gaze swept the room, cataloguing inconsistencies. "Curieux," he said. "The clock, running slow, suggests the toast occurred later than you recall. Perhaps 7:25, not 7:15. Yet your alibis overlap except for one." He turned to Charles. "Monsieur Wentworth, you claim to have been with Perkins, yet he was in the dining room by 7 serving. How do you explain this?" Charles flushed, stammering. I must have misremembered. Maybe it was another servant." Perkins, standing by the door, shook his head. "I was in the dining room, sir, from 6:45 onward." The room grew tense, Charles's discomfort palpable. Dr. Voss's lips curled slightly, while Sir Henry's scowl deepened. Clara's eyes widened, and Gray's handkerchief twisted in his hands. Poirot let the silence linger, his little grey cells at work. "Hastings," he said as the guests dispersed, "the clock's deception reveals a crack in the alibis. Charles Wentworth's account falters, and the timing of the toast is critical. If the poison was delivered during that moment, the extra minutes may have given the culprit opportunity." Hastings nodded. "Charles is looking guiltier by the minute, Poirot. But how does the clock connect to the poison?" "The poison," Poirot said, "is the phantom we chase. Its delivery, perhaps through the air, as Clara's comment about the stuffy room suggests, required precise timing. The clock's tampering ensured confusion, masking the moment of administration." He glanced toward the dining room, its air vent and candelabra still vivid in his mind. "We must examine the vent again, Hastings. The odour, the timing, they are the threads we must weave together." The manor's walls seemed to close in, the clock's deception a silent witness to a crime that remained maddeningly elusive. Chapter 10. The Poison's Veil. The evening shadows stretched long across Ashbourne Manor's dining room, where Hercule Poirot stood amidst the ghostly echoes of the fatal dinner. The table, cleared of its opulent settings, seemed stark under the chandelier's dim glow, yet the air held a weight of secrets. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, leaned against the mantel, watching Poirot with a mix of admiration and impatience. "Poirot," Hastings said, "you've been staring at that vent for ages. Are you sure this poison business isn't leading us in circles?" Poirot's moustache twitched, his eyes gleaming with quiet conviction. "Mon ami, we are not in circles, but spiralling toward the truth. The poison's veil is lifting, and tonight we shall see its shape." The investigation had reached a critical juncture. Earlier that day, Poirot had sent a telegram to Dr. Alistair Moreau, a renowned toxicologist in London, describing the faint, bitter odour he'd detected and the absence of detectable toxins in Lord Ashbourne's body. The reply, delivered just hours ago, was a revelation. Dr. Moreau wrote of a rare compound, a volatile neurotoxin derived from synthetic organophosphates, odourless to most, but faintly bitter to a trained nose. It could kill within minutes through inhalation, dissipating without a trace. Incroyable, Poirot had murmured, reading the telegram. A poison that dances in the air, then vanishes like a phantom. This, Hastings, is our invisible killer. Now, in the dining room, Poirot focused on the brass air vent above the table, its grill barely noticeable against the ornate wallpaper. He had noted Clara Beaumont's remark about the stuffy air and the tampered clock's role in obscuring the timeline. The pieces were aligning, and he suspected the poison had been delivered not through food or drink, but through the very air the guests breathed. "Hastings," Poirot said, "assist me, s'il vous plaît. We shall recreate the dinner's conditions, candles lit, vent open, table set. Precision is paramount." Hastings, though sceptical, helped arrange the table with spare settings from the pantry, while Perkins, the butler, brought candelabras at Poirot's request. Poirot lit the candles, their flames casting flickering shadows, and opened the vent's grill, revealing a narrow duct leading to the manor's heating system. He inhaled deeply, seeking the elusive odour, but the air was clean, too clean, perhaps. "Curieux," Poirot murmured, climbing onto a chair to peer into the duct. His gloved fingers brushed the interior, collecting a faint residue, powdery and grey. "Regardez, Hastings, this dust. It is not mere grime. It may be the poison's carrier, released during the dinner." Hastings frowned. "Dust? How could dust kill a man?" "Not dust alone," Poirot explained, stepping down. "A compound, aerosolized, could linger in the vent, activated by heat or airflow. The candles, the stuffy air, they suggest a mechanism triggered at the precise moment of the toast." To test his theory, Poirot instructed Perkins to stoke the manor's furnace, simulating the heating system's operation during the dinner. As warm air whispered through the vent, Poirot positioned himself near the table, his senses alert. A faint bitter scent emerged, so subtle it might have been imagination, but Poirot's trained nose confirmed it. The same odour from the candelabra. "Mon Dieu," he said, his voice low. "The poison was in the air, Hastings, released through this vent. The clock's tampering delayed the timeline, masking the moment of delivery. A brilliant plan." Hastings's eyes widened. "But who could manage such a thing? It's devilishly clever." "Précisément," Poirot said. "It requires knowledge, chemical expertise, perhaps from Dr. Voss, and access to the manor's systems. We must learn who serviced the furnace, who knew its ducts." He turned to Perkins, who hovered nearby, his gaunt face impassive. "Monsieur Perkins, the heating system, who maintains it?" "A local engineer, sir," Perkins replied. "Mr. Dawson, from Haverford. He was here a week before the dinner. Routine maintenance." "And did any guests interact with him?" Poirot pressed. Perkins hesitated. "I believe Dr. Voss asked about the manor's ventilation. For her experiments, she said. I thought nothing of it." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Most illuminating," and the stranger seen near the gates. "Did Dawson mention any unfamiliar visitors?" Perkins shook his head. "Not to me, sir." As Perkins withdrew, Hastings said, "Voss again, Poirot. Her name keeps surfacing, her chemicals, her questions. She's got to be involved." "Perhaps," Poirot said, "but we must not rush to judgment. The poison's veil hides many faces. Charles Wentworth's ambition, Sir Henry's rivalry, even Mr. Gray's nervousness. The vent is the method, but the motive remains elusive. He paced the room, his little grey cells weaving the clues together. The vent, the residue, the tampered clock, the bitter odour. "We are close, Hastings," he said. "The poison was a vapour, timed to kill during the toast, when all were distracted. But how was it placed, and why only Lord Ashbourne?" The dining-room seemed to hold its breath, its silence a challenge to Poirot's intellect. The truth was near, but the manor's secrets clung tightly, waiting for the final unveiling. Chapter 11. The Hidden Pact. The evening draped Ashbourne Manor in a heavy stillness, broken only by the occasional creak of its ancient timbers. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing-room, his gloved fingers holding a torn fragment of a letter he had retrieved from the fireplace's ashes. The paper, scorched but legible, bore a precise, almost scientific script, hinting at a clandestine agreement. Captain Hastings, peering over Poirot's shoulder, frowned at the cryptic words. "Poirot," Hastings said, "this letter's a bombshell. But how did you know to check the fireplace?" Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. "Mon ami, the guilty often seek to destroy their secrets, but ashes, they whisper truths. This letter, it is a thread we must pull to unravel the hidden pact." The fragment read, "Agree to conceal the truth. Patent secured. Ashbourne's interference ends." The signature was burned away, but the implications were clear. A conspiracy linked to Lord Ashbourne's death. Poirot's discovery had come during a meticulous search of the drawing-room, prompted by the growing web of motives and the airborne poison's confirmed delivery through the dining-room vent. Determined to confront the suspects, Poirot summoned Dr. Evelyn Voss and Sir Henry Caldwell to the library, suspecting their scientific rivalry and shared history made them likely authors of the letter. The library's towering shelves and flickering lamplight created an atmosphere thick with tension as the two entered, their expressions guarded. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, holding up the torn letter. "This document suggests a pact to conceal a truth, one tied to a patent and Lord Ashbourne's demise. I ask you plainly, did you conspire against him?" Dr. Voss's dark eyes narrowed, her posture rigid. "That's preposterous, Monsieur Poirot. I have no need for pacts. My work stands on its own merit." Sir Henry, his ruddy face flushing, slammed a fist on the table. "This is an outrage. You're accusing us based on a scrap of paper? I've no part in any conspiracy." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Denials are expected, but the letter speaks of a patent, a matter you've both contested years ago. Lord Ashbourne funded your work, yet he also stood in your way. Explain this, s'il vous plaît." Voss's lips curled slightly, her voice icy. "The patent was mine by right, stolen by Sir Henry's manipulations. Lord Ashbourne mediated, but he favoured Henry's funding. If anyone had reason to resent him, it's this man." She gestured dismissively at Sir Henry. Sir Henry's eyes blazed. "Lies! You sabotaged my research, Evelyn, and when Ashbourne saw through your schemes, you turned on him. Don't play the victim now." The confrontation escalated, their accusations revealing a deeper truth. Poirot interjected, his voice cutting through the din. "Enough! You admit to a shared grievance against Lord Ashbourne. Did this lead to a pact to silence him, perhaps with a poison only a chemist could devise? Voss's composure cracked, her hands trembling slightly. I know nothing of poison, monsieur. My research is medical, not murderous. If there was a pact, ask Sir Henry. He's the one with the motive. Sir Henry scoffed, but his bluster faltered under Poirot's scrutiny. We did discuss the patent, yes, but only to protect our work. Ashbourne was threatening to cut funding unless we collaborated. We agreed to present a united front, nothing more. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A united front, you say? And this letter, it speaks of concealing the truth. What truth, Sir Henry? Sir Henry hesitated, then sighed. Ashbourne discovered our collaboration wasn't entirely honest. We'd exaggerated our progress to secure his investment. He threatened to expose us, ruin our reputations. But murder? No, I swear it. Hastings, standing by the door, whispered, They're admitting to fraud, Poirot, but poison's a far cry from fudging reports. Poirot murmured, but fraud is a motive, and motives lead to murder. The letter complicates the poison's origin. Did they act together, or is one deflecting blame? He turned back to the scientists. The poison, it was a neurotoxin, delivered through the dining room vent. Only someone with your expertise could devise such a method. Speak now, or the truth will find you. Voss's gaze hardened. You have no evidence, monsieur. The vent, the poison, it's speculation. I've no access to such compounds, and Sir Henry's lab is better equipped than mine. Sir Henry bristled. Don't drag me into your schemes, Evelyn. My work's clean. Ask the engineers who serviced the Manor's furnace. They'll vouch for me. Poirot noted the mention of the furnace, tying it to his earlier findings about the ventilation system. Merci, he said, dismissing them. Your words have been most revealing. As Voss and Sir Henry left, their mutual distrust palpable, Poirot turned to Hastings. The pact, mon ami, is a shadow of motive, greed, pride, fear of exposure. But the poison's delivery required precision, not just knowledge. We must investigate the furnace further, and the stranger seen near the gates, perhaps an accomplice, held the letter fragment to the lamplight, its scorched edges a testament to a desperate act. The truth is close, Hastings. The hidden pact has narrowed our suspects, but the poison's veil still cloaks the final answer. The library's silence seemed to pulse with the Manor's secrets, urging Poirot's little grey cells toward the climax of the mystery. Chapter 12. The final tableau, the dining room of Ashbourne Manor, gleamed under the chandelier's golden light, its long table set once more, as if the fatal dinner had never ended. Hercule Poirot stood at the head, his impeccable suit a stark contrast to the sombre faces of the assembled guests. Lady Margaret Ashbourne, Charles Wentworth, Sir Henry Caldwell, Dr. Evelyn Voss, Miss Clara Beaumont, and Mr. Lionel Grey. Captain Hastings stood by the door, his eyes fixed on Poirot, who radiated an air of quiet triumph. Outside the night was still, the storm's echoes long faded, but within the tension was electric. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice clear and commanding, tonight we recreate the scene of Lord Ashbourne's death to unveil the truth. The poison, invisible and swift, was no phantom. It was a neurotoxin, delivered through the air, and the hand that released it is among us." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Lady Ashbourne clutched her pearls. Charles Wentworth's jaw tightened, and Sir Henry's ruddy face paled. Dr. Voss remained impassive, while Clara's eyes widened and Grey's hands trembled. Poirot's little grey cells had woven the clues: the tampered clock, the Vents residue, the torn letter, the unseen guest, into a tapestry of truth. "Let us begin," Poirot said, gesturing to the table. "The dinner, it was a stage, and the poison, a silent actor. The clock, slowed by 10 minutes, masked the precise moment of delivery. The vent above us," he pointed to the brass grill, "carried a vapour, released during the toast when all were distracted. Hastings, directed by Poirot, lit the candelabras, their flames mirroring the fateful night." Poirot continued, "The odour I detected, faint and bitter, was a volatile neurotoxin, dissipating without trace. It required expertise, access to the bare manners furnace, and a motive rooted in betrayal." He turned to Dr. Voss, whose cool gaze met his. "Mademoiselle, your knowledge of chemistry made you a suspect, but your motive, professional rivalry, was not enough. The letter spoke of a pact with Sir Henry, but it was a distraction, oui?" Voss nodded slightly, her composure intact. "I told you, monsieur, I am no murderer." Poirot's eyes shifted to Sir Henry. "You, monsieur, admitted to fraud, fearing exposure, but your bluster hid no deeper crime." Sir Henry exhaled, relief flickering across his face. Charles Wentworth leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Get to the point, Poirot. If not them, who?" Poirot's gaze settled on Mr. Lionel Grey, the quiet solicitor who shrank under the scrutiny. "Monsieur Grey," Poirot said, "you have been the shadow in this drama, unnoticed yet ever present. Your walks near the gates, your nervousness, your vague alibi, they betray you." Grey's handkerchief fell to the floor, his voice a whisper. "Me? That's absurd. I'm just a solicitor." "No," Poirot said, his tone unyielding. "You are more." The photograph in the library revealed a truth. You, Lord Ashbourne, and Dr. Voss at a conference years ago. You were not a solicitor then, but a chemist, dismissed for unethical experiments. Lord Ashbourne, your mentor, betrayed you by exposing your work, ruining your career. The room froze. Clara gasped, and Lady Ashbourne's eyes widened. Poirot continued, "You came here under a false identity, hired to manage the estate's legal affairs, but your true purpose was revenge. The stranger at the gates, your accomplice, delivering the neurotoxin you synthesized." Grey stammered, "This is nonsense. I have no such skills." Poirot raised a hand. "The furnace records. Checked this morning. Show you requested maintenance access, claiming a legal audit. You placed the toxin in the vent, activated by the furnace's heat during the toast. The tampered clock ensured no one noticed the timing. The tea tray, misplaced, was your test run, a distraction to confuse the staff." Lady Ashbourne's voice trembled. "Lionel, is this true?" Grey's face crumpled, his quiet demeanour shattering. "He destroyed me," he cried. "Ashbourne called my work monstrous, cast me out. I waited years, planned every detail. The poison was my triumph, undetectable, perfect." Hastings stepped forward, ready to restrain him, but Poirot signalled calm. "Your triumph, monsieur, was your downfall. The odour, faint but present, betrayed. You, the little grey cells, they do not forgive such oversights. Grey slumped, defeated, as Perkins summoned Inspector Grayson, who had been waiting in the hall. The inspector, initially sceptical, now nodded grimly. "Well done, monsieur. Poirot will take it from here." As Grey was led away, the guests dispersed, their faces a mix of shock and relief. Poirot turned to Hastings, his expression sombre. "The motive, mon ami, was a wound long festering. Betrayal breeds vengeance, and vengeance a poison of the soul." The dining room, now empty, seemed to exhale, its secrets laid bare. The invisible poison had found its master, and Poirot's final tableau had unveiled the truth. Chapter 13. The Little Grey Cells. The morning sun bathed Ashbourne Manor in a golden glow, as if cleansing the shadows of the past week's tragedy. Hercule Poirot sat in the manor's conservatory, a haven of glass and greenery, sipping a tisane prepared by a subdued Perkins. Captain Hastings lounged in a wicker chair opposite, his face a mix of relief and curiosity. The arrest of Mr. Lionel Grey had lifted the pall of suspicion from the household, but questions lingered in the air, as delicate as the steam rising from Poirot's cup. "Poirot," Hastings said, leaning forward, "you've done it again. Unravelled, a puzzle that baffled us all. But I confess, I'm still foggy on how you pieced it together. That invisible poison, the vent, Grey's motive, how did you know?" Poirot's moustache curved in a satisfied smile. "Mon ami, the little Grey cells, they are never idle. They see what others overlook, hear the whispers of truth in a cacophony of lies. Let us review the case, Hastings, and you shall see the path to clarity." He set his cup down, his eyes distant as he recounted the journey. "From the moment Lord Ashbourne collapsed, I knew we faced a poison unlike any other. The absence of traces, no residue in the food, the wine, pointed to something extraordinary. The faint, bitter odour by the candelabra was the first clue, a scent so subtle it eluded all but Poirot's trained senses." Hastings nodded. "That odour puzzled me. You kept returning to it." "Oui," Poirot said. "It was the thread that led to the vent. Clara Beaumont's remark about the stuffy air, the tampered clock slowing the timeline, these suggested an airborne toxin, released with precision. Dr. Moreau's telegram confirmed it, a volatile neurotoxin, dissipating without trace, a masterpiece of chemistry." He leaned back, his fingers steepled, but the method was only half the puzzle. The motive required understanding the manor's inhabitants. Lady Ashbourne's grief masked fear of financial ruin. Charles Wentworth's ambition pointed to inheritance, but his alibi, though shaky, held. Sir Henry and Dr. Voss, their pact to conceal fraud, suggested motive, yet their rivalry made them unlikely partners in murder. Hastings frowned. "And Grey? He was so unremarkable, I barely noticed him." "Précisément," Poirot said. "The unnoticed are the most dangerous. Grey's quiet demeanour was his shield. The photograph in the library, a younger Grey with Ashbourne and Voss, revealed his past as a chemist, disgraced by Ashbourne's betrayal. His walks near the gates, his access to the furnace, his nervous glances, they were the cracks in his facade." Poirot sipped his tisane, continuing. The torn letter in the fireplace, though a distraction from Voss and Sir Henry's pact, hinted at hidden truths. Grey used their rivalry to deflect suspicion, planting subtle doubts. The misplaced tea, tray, Ellen's whisper of an argument. These were his missteps, meant to confuse but ultimately betraying his careful plan. Hastings shook his head, marvelling. But the vent, Poirot! How did you know it was the delivery method? Shoo, vent, Poirot said, was the only explanation for a poison that struck one man in a shared meal. The residue I found, the furnace's maintenance records showing Grey's involvement, and the tampered clock, all pointed to a timed release during the toast. Grey, posing as a solicitor, had the knowledge and opportunity to synthesize the toxin and place it in the duct. He paused, his expression softening. Yet, mon ami, the case is not merely about clues. It is about the human heart. Grey's vengeance, born of betrayal, consumed him. He crafted a perfect crime. But perfection, it is the enemy of the little grey cells. They see the smallest flaw, the odour, the dust, the lie. Hastings smiled. You make it sound simple, Poirot. But I'd have been lost without you. Poirot waved a hand. No, Hastings, you see more than you think. Your discovery of the stranger at the inn, your questions, they stirred the pot, forcing the truth to rise. The conservatory door opened, and Lady Ashbourne entered, her mourning veil replaced by a sombre but composed expression. Monsieur Poirot, she said, I cannot thank you enough. The estate is safe now, though the pain remains. Poirot bowed. Madame, justice is a balm, though it does not erase grief. The manor will heal, as will you. As she left, Hastings asked, what of Voss and Sir Henry, their fraud? Poirot shrugged. A matter for the courts, not Poirot. Their pact was a crime of pride, not murder. And the stranger, likely a courier for Grey's toxin, is a threat for Inspector Grayson to pursue. He rose, gazing at the garden beyond the glass. The case of the invisible poison, Hastings, reminds us that truth, like air, cannot be held. It slips through, but the little grey cells, they capture it. The manor stood quiet, its secrets laid bare. Poirot's work was done, leaving only the echoes of justice and the enduring brilliance of his mind.